Hey guys, I'm going to do a little different type of video today. I wanted to talk about the Dire Maul announcement. And if you haven't heard, on October 15th, Dire Maul is going to be coming out. And you might have been saying, hey, I thought it was in phase 2. That was the plan, but they've decided to release Dire Maul only ahead of schedule. And the rest of phase 2 is going to be still planned to come out late 2019. And Dire Maul is going to end up coming out about a month and a half after the release of Classic. And I personally do not think it was a good idea to introduce Dire Maul this early. So I'm going to be going over some of the reasons why. First of all, you just got to understand how powerful some of the items are coming out of Dire Maul. So not only do you have all the amazing blues, there's going to be a couple epics that are going to be introduced in Dire Maul. The first of which is Quel'Serrar, which is, obviously an amazing weapon for tanks, and it has a very strong proc. So that's going to be in the game, and it's going to make stuff easier because people are going to have it. But at the end of the day, right, it's not that big of a deal. But we also have Hide of the Wild, and again, same deal. It's a really good piece of gear, and it's going to be the best option for healers. But you might be asking, well, what really is the big deal of just them adding powerful items to the game? Well, a lot of people have been under the assumption that Phase 2 wasn't coming for a while. So items like Saffron Drape were being awarded to healers as well as caster DPS. Again, under the assumption that this is best in slot for healers until Phase 2. So, healers can roll on it since it's best in slot. It might be better for, caster DPS, but it's still best in slot for healers. So a lot of healers were being allowed to roll on the Saffron Drape and getting the Saffron Drape. And so it's a little awkward that Hide of the Wild is now being released so soon, because a lot of, loot decisions have been made by guilds and groups and friends based on, the assumption that items like Hide of the Wild would not be coming for months. So that's just an example of how the lack of notice, I guess, we're getting 7 days notice, could affect how, guild gearing. So that's just a quick example of how looting decisions could have been, altered based on the false assumption of when the gear is going to come. But we also have raid pieces. That was at the very least, Hide of the Wild is very expensive, but there are some raid pieces that are going to be replaced by blues. So there's not a lot, but one example here, the Night Slayer bracelets. They are the Rogue Tier 1 bracers, and they're going to be replaced by the bracers of the Eclipse out of Dire Maul. And me personally, I think it's kind of lame that so soon after launch, players are already going to start replacing some raid pieces with Dire Maul gear. And so I think, considering how hard it is to get some of those raid pieces, you need 40 people, and then there's a lot of rogues. In the example, like the Night Slayer bracelets, a lot of people you had to roll against. You win the roll, you get your epic bracers, and then a month and a half after launch, we already have Dire Maul in, and you might already start replacing some of those epics. So I think that's a little lame, but again, I don't want to get you guys too worried. There are not that many epics from raid that are going to get replaced by Dire Maul gear, but there are some. So the next thing I wanted to talk about are just these items that you guys have probably been working hard on grinding, that you were thinking were going to be best in slot for quite a while. So you might have paid a hunter or a warlock to run you through Dire Maul to get the Blackstone ring, or maybe you just ran it a bunch of times and finally got it. But either way, you either spent a lot of gold or time trying to get the Blackstone ring. And for some classes, the Tarnished Elven ring is going to be better. So you might have spent a lot of time and resources thinking you were getting one of the best rings in the game, and it still is, but it's no longer, for example, as a rogue, it's no longer pre-raid best in slot for the rings. So that's an example of an item that you guys have probably been working hard to get that, you know, you're going to be replacing a little sooner than expected. And then we also have the Briarwood Reed. And this is kind of a similar situation to the Saffron Drape. You'll see that they both increase your spell damage. And just like the Saffron Cape, you had healers rolling on the Briarwood Reed, thinking it was their best in slot. And now we have Mind Tap Talisman introduced in the game. And for a lot of healers, especially the MP5 healers, such as like shamans, they're now, you know, they just spent a lot of time farming Briarwood Reed. It's not the easiest thing to farm. And thinking it was going to be best in slot for months. And then, you know, Mind Tap Talisman is now going to be their new best in slot. And only a month and a half after release, and only with 7 days notice. Now they might have already farmed the Briarwood Reed, and you know, they didn't necessarily need to if the goal is to now get the Mind Tap Talisman. All right, so those are just a couple examples of items that you might have farmed that are not going to be worth as much. Now let's talk about some BOEs. So I think the biggest example is going to be the Warden staff, because I don't know how much it was going for on you guys' server, but on my server it was going for about 400 gold for this Warden staff. And again, a lot of people bought it thinking it was going to be best in slot for months. But now with Dire Maul releasing, the Unyielding Maul is pretty much identical, a little bit worse, but near identical. And so anyone who has a Warden staff, it's going to plummet in value. And anyone who bought a Warden staff is kind of out of luck. They spent way more than they would have had anyone known that Unyielding Maul was arriving this early. And at the very least, the Warden staff would have been cheaper to buy had we known that the Unyielding Maul was going to be out so soon with Dire Maul. But so that's just another example of where players, because they didn't know that Dire Maul was coming so soon, they could have made decisions or investments, however you want to put it, bought gear, and kind of ended up not working out. And, you know, similarly to the Warden staff, I wanted to talk about the Dreadsteed and the Paladin mount. Same with the Paladin mount. They are going to be available in Dire Maul. The quest to unlock these mounts is in Dire Maul. And a lot of people were, you know, contemplating, should I buy my 100% mount, or should I wait till Dire Maul? And I personally know a few people that finally made the decision to buy the Epic mount when the announcement was made 4 days ago, or it was reported. Blizzard did take part in the interview. I don't know if they had anything to do with the scheduling of the article or when it was published, but 3 days before the announcement that Dire Maul is going to be coming out in October, there was an article that went out, and you can see this is on Wowhead, saying that Phase 2 is coming in late 2019. And the quote, or it's not a quote, but they said that the game director Ian Hazzikosis announced the intent to push Phase 2 before the new year. So this makes it sound like Phase 2 is coming very late into 2019. And so wrapping back to the mounts, I know a few people personally who, based on that announcement, decided to pull the trigger on buying their Epic mounts. And now that it's going to be available in the game, a lot of people, are disappointed that they just spent a lot of gold on a mount and they didn't have to, right? Had they only known that Dire Maul was coming. So those are some of the big points. The biggest thing for me is players, not only is it early into Classic that this is coming out, but players just had no heads up. And a lot of decisions were made, whether it's distributing loot, whether it's buying items on the auction house, whether it's buying the Epic mount, whether it's farming a certain pre-raid best in slot item. A lot of decisions were made made by players under a false assumption that Dire Maul was going to release with Phase 2, which, I mean, even in the Wowhead post, they talk about the Phase 2 content, and they mention Dire Maul. So a lot of players and Blizzard said that it was going to be in Phase 2. So, I mean, Blizzard changed their mind on when they wanted to release the content and didn't give the players much notice. And because of that adjustment, a lot of players kind of ended up with the short end of the stick in a lot of different aspects. So one last note I'm going to mention is, in this one I wanted to leave till last because I wanted you guys' feedback. But I personally do not need Dire Maul to be in the game right now. And I wanted to ask you guys, are you guys bored? Have you guys already gotten all your gear? I only hit 60, like 3 or 4 days ago. And I was playing a lot and I was having fun, but I wasn't trying to speed level. So it took me quite a while to hit 60, and even though I play a lot, I'm not ready for Dire Maul yet. I still have to do a lot of content with the other dungeons, and I just kind of wanted to get you guys's, I guess, feel for, are you guys ready for Dire Maul, or could it have been another couple months and that would have been okay with you guys? So let me know what you think in the comments below.